Okie dokie, daily trading recap for Tuesday, the 7th of December, 2021. Nice little morning session we had today. SPY overall, the market, 2% day in the green we got on SPY itself. Where's the news media coverage on this one? Right, just business as usual. This is a great example of days like this where, man, it's just going insane to the upside on very little volume compared to what it did on these harder red days for that type of volume. But we're just right back to that 470-ish area, closer to these all-time highs once again, and it's kind of just a peep compared to. So I just think it's a funny comparison to how everybody starts to panic on these red days, and here we are, right back again, business as normal, right back at those old levels. But that is just besides the point. So yeah, like I mentioned, nice little morning session that we had, some more volatility, some more movers coming back around. Before I get into those, I'll get into just market internals. Dollar volume, we had NASDAQ $263 billion volume today as of 50 minutes after the close here. NYSE $314 billion volume. OTC's $2.8 billion volume, just for reference for me. Plenty more inspired today too by Jack number 2, number 7 in the chat to continue to push the envelope and continue to push harder on my monthly goal, which is that push harder. I think that's exactly what it is. So I'm continue to inspire to just expand everything that I'm doing on this with paper trading, with continuing to take, if I am going actually trading through my long account, through my margin account, I'm going extremely small size, like $20 at most. And I'll get into a few that I'm doing that on today too. But yeah, continue to be inspired by, as the opportunity is there, I do not know the limits to myself or what my best personality is suited to. And I think there's far more options that can be well suited to my personality as a trader, as a person. So, and that's until I find consistency and I can find a repeatable long-term strategy. I have no reason to shun any idea, any modality, whether that is options or futures, trading SPY itself, or trading the S&P itself, or any avenue like that too. I certainly have no right to turn that down. So continuing to keep the mind open, perspective free, and clear of any opinions, and just looking at what's there and saying, okay, wow, people are able to take a lot of money from this type of strategy or this type of movement here. Let's explore that. Let's look into that here, or just even finding our own path of saying, wow, there's little nickels to be picked up here. Let's just pick them up while they're free. So continuing to grow and expand like that. Let's get into SYTA, big mover today. Good to see is this a sub million floater? This is 4-ish million floater. Newscast today was they're putting out like rugged phone cases or something. It's a cellular device company. Stupid BS news. They're burning through cash as a company. But this was one of the biggest percentage movers in the pre-market itself, and loving the fact that it's just a downtrending daily. I wanted to force on this a short perspective, of course, following in the footsteps of the Jack number 2 of all these guys that are saying, oh, it's up too much. You know, it has this history of on big volume days, it's just kind of dying off, or just a one and done type of chart days here, especially with an overhead daily, the same thing too. But we got to respect what's there, and just the feelings that these things give off in they're kind of very easy to tell at times what they could potentially do. And I think I played that very well, initiated what the thought process was for this one on the day before even market opened to that extent. So Chris had a very nice trade on this one, buying the bottom almost perfectly here for like 409 and selling where I was on this little scalpy trade here as we reclaim back to VWAP on big volume. So it didn't really want to try and play this one any type of short in just to keep my mind clear and focused, because I was a little bit more biased to say I think I should be more looking at this one as a long. So just this little scalp here was taken off like a max opportunity really of 5% here that I could have gotten around 4.5 to 4.8ish. Little tiny scalp just to keep me involved, keep me going. But it was more of, and I'll get into more on this one too for how far we were going up in price later, that I was getting a little bit undisciplined on the long side of just because I am, I fall into a little bit of the fallacy of I'm paper trading, I'm being educational, I'm getting more data, I'm just kind of testing the waters, versus riding a fine line to say, okay, what is over trading, what is just stupidly kind of blindly going back to what I was doing very frequently in the past, which is why I started paper trading all that time ago of I was just taking stupid little trades and convincing myself of, oh, this is an educational little starter, or it's a FOMO appeaser. I totally fell into that trap way back then, and I think I caved into that a little bit today. And they turned out pretty successful on all of them. The later ones, later in market hours, as it was already pretty parabolic on the day, that's when it gets especially tough to continue to validate those as, am I really trading here, or am I just like screwing around having fun? But it reminds me of the same sentiment too it reminded me of Roland Wolf saying on the DWAC day, on the first day of DWAC's run up, that, man, it's tough for him to buy it that far because he is that experienced veteran trader. And yeah, learning from all those guys and just in a normal trading sense, you can't just continue to buy it as it's up 200%, whatever it was. Whatever crazy percentage it was up on the day. Even though you can feel it, or even if you said it out loud that I know the future, I know it's going to go up 100% from this point, to try and justify, validate, oh, it's already up so much though. Like, how can you continue to keep throwing cash at it as a long? That's the same thing with this one, and continuing to refine it. But if it's the opportunity is there, then the opportunity is there. So kind of a little scatterbrain on that one, but decent little trades here in pre as it's reclaiming and showing strength off of a little failed. I wouldn't necessarily call it. I do call it a failed morning dump because we're looking at these signs here of the failure to maintain VWAP after that initial crazy spike. It comes off of this little perk, tries to identify where we're stacking bidders and sellers, rides that spike higher to a new high of day around this $5 whole dollar level area, pulls back, fails to maintain VWAP. Bigger volume there, shows the dump, breaks down a little bit more, 4.6 to 4.2-ish, so you're getting a little 10% move there, which was what I would be scaling out to, especially. Maybe if I'm holding a little bit more, still risking that high of day, which is very high risk levels you got to hold with these pre-market plays like that, which I was doing, and it's just, I even look back at those trades now and I'm like, man, that's a crazy risk-reward level that I was playing with those ones. So maybe you get a few more cents out of that short if you're still trading from that entry point there. But then as they, double bottom a little bit or show strength on the bid, I was watching this one here especially. There was definitely a nice little bid showing of strength around this level. We got this nice perk after that. To me, in that point, it's VWAP reclaim is in sights with almost near 100% certainty. And I was thinking we were going to especially get closer to that $5 mark within pre-market itself too, even before market open. But it just wasn't in the works, so cutting it before then. But as it was still holding, clinging to that VWAP, I knew I wanted to be long into market open, which be very speculative, which seems to be very speculative and sketchy of, this thing could just absolutely dump. It's got a little bit of overhead in the form of warrants and like a note, but it wasn't anything that today didn't just absolutely demolish. It wasn't crazy size whatsoever. So just had that feeling of how it was clinging and double bottoming here in pre, building nicely still into market open, that, hey, let's throw a few shares on here. I think it could produce a nice little squeeze here out of the gate, and sure enough it did. So it was taken off with whatever size I was trading at that point, in real shares of just like 2 or 3 shares. Was able to scale out one at a 10% move from where I was at, building with strength, just to take profits as they're there, continuing to live in the safety world of this thing could just out of nowhere dump for no reason against you blindly. We continue to ride higher, and we find a little bit of resistance here, a little pull. It starts to pull back around this 5.2-ish mark, and I'm saying, okay, sweet. Yeah, I think that's, we got our nice little perk that was there. Maybe it pulls a little bit closer back to VWAP or just does whatever. So I'll end the trade for me there right now. But sure enough, pretty much right after that, it continues to spike higher to new high of day. Still develops for 3 or 4 more minutes here, and then goes crazy for the rest of the day, the rest of the morning session. And this is where I got a little squirrely. So just kind of reveling and dancing in the, oh sweet, we got these nice movers again. This at least would start potentially maybe a few more to do this type of price action. That way, that good to see that at least in this type of market environment. And of course, it took a 2% day in the green on the SPY to have this type of day on SYTA potentially. But that's where I got a little squirrely of maybe a little bit head in the clouds too much of trying to fool around here with these little scalps. And that's just when it gets, there's just so many players in this on both sides that look at how many different candles here we could get faked out on. And even as it's breaking to a new high here to 7, like post morning session, you can identify these like 1, 2, 3 candle wiki candles here where it tried to break out or tried to look like it was the consolidation, then breakout attempt on volume that it just absolutely slammed below you and would have just like scarred so many people and just continued to wear away all the bidders, all the players trying to get in on that same type of opportunity. But eventually it did happen. And then a few minutes later, sure enough, just tanks right back to VWAP in the same light. And that was pretty much really it for price action for the day here, fading hard into the close. Great experience there. Great chart to see. And again, kind of maybe more so piggybacking off of this 2% market that we had today, 2% day in the green that we had. But learning more and growing more off of that, even through this, even through the lack of discipline and making money through that, understanding that this isn't going to always happen and that's just not how it's going to work, even though it's like, just that little itchy trigger finger when seeing it time and time again. That's how I was so hard in the 2020 market, of just because everything went 3,000%. And it was just like, oh, okay, well, this isn't the best trade setup here, but I think it's going to go. And then eventually, of course, it just does go up for whatever reason. And then you feel stupid because it's like, oh, well, why didn't I buy? You should have just bought all the time, every single thing in that 2020 market, right? And it was just going to go up. So these type of charts, I have to reflect on that as well, too, that it's hard to all the time maintain that discipline if they're just continuing to go up and up and up, that they just can't go up forever for infinity. You have to take profits at some time. You still have to be a risk managed trader. So a great example of that today with this chart. So very grateful and thankful for that too. And grateful to see how Jack number 2 was trading these type of charts and how he managed to pick out, I think resistance is at $7. And sure enough, right around the 7.2 area is a perfect top. It ends up being the top of the day for a nice little slide down into the close here. I'm sure he banked on that type of short. So continuing to learn off of him and grow from what he's preaching and trading as well. JZXN, probably my best trader on the day. The same type of thing. Well, this ticker is my biggest win and biggest loss, which both happened on the same day on the 14th of July here in the summer, trading a little morning dump setup. I think I was doing daily recaps at that point. Probably not. But I was trying to get a little cheeky here as I thought it was breaking under VWAP for the confirmation of the trade, the downturn trade there. But it ended up reversing. So I think it was covering at high of day for a pretty steep, pretty hard P&L loss there, but still great, maintenance of, I don't have to go over that trade that day specifically again, but was able to continue to maintain that focus even through that biggest loss that I think I've had a bigger loss on SPY, but my biggest equity loss of even through that, saying, okay, well, I still think the signs are here. I still think the potential is there. We're kind of looking weak here at VWAP and getting an entry around here and playing it for a nice little down move there, which ended up being my biggest win and kind of covering that loss that I just took on it, respecting and cutting losses quickly on that one. So maintaining that same principle in mind, applying that to the chart today. It's a 6-7 million-ish floater. They're trying to put out EV news today. If anything on that EV sector is hitting, just looking to tackle that. We're getting a very this candle here, this little perk here around 8:30ish time frame. I wrote in my journal, this could be kind of the point that I'm looking for with these exhaustive volume candle trades. Not so much that it's just a random one candle spike that you can use as a basis to short into and risk the high off of that candle, which many times over and over again produces 1 minute, 2 minute pullback and then promptly begins to test that high of day again with very nice volume, versus what this type of spike was doing was puts in huge volume, second candle after that on that minute candle with huge volume comparable to what it did on that first candle, tries to create new price action to get more emotion going, but just can't and continues to dunk off of there. That could be a far better risk reward probability of a continuation of the reversal off of that spike as compared to what that I would normally just kind of blindly short off of a huge random volume candle here that just continues to spike to a new high of day and saying, oh, wow, it's up too much. It's too much volume. I feel like it's less probability of those spiking, seeing this type of pattern today where it's more volume continuing off of what it just did in that first candle to get the spike initially. Showing in this little chart today, it did have a little bit more, it did kind of cling to VWAP and have another second attempt after that. But more of a probable chart. Call it like if you're getting around 205 to 19 here, 7% trade. That would be for that little pullback. So decent in my book here for an entry to call it that if you're trying to pick tops on that style of chart and not so much looking at VWAP as an entry point indicator here. Maybe you can call this second off of this third peak here and failure to maintain VWAP there with big volume. Call that another entry point closer to market open there. That would have been a nice entry, of course, looking in hindsight. But of course, through trading view, can't do anything in pre-market. So it does handcuff me a little bit, but I'm still utilizing every opportunity that I can. So seeing this dump right out of the gate, I knew if it didn't have any amount of perkage, just any amount of holding, maybe reclaimed to VWAP, I thought it was just going to be a full dump day, full death, bleeding day. And sure enough, it pretty much was. Getting short pretty much right out of the gate after seeing that hard dump. Tries to pull back or tries to, pour it in a little bit of a bounce closer to that open price, but that ends up being all that she wrote for the morning session. So holding those shares short, putting in a cover as it's consolidating a little bit in this morning session just to take profits as they are there and not just play with fire. And end up seeing a nice little dump to a newer low of day that I end up covering sporadically throughout post-morning session here, closer into the lunch hours as well, too, for a very nice little trade on that one, which is a kind of textbook appeasing trade to my psyche. And I wrote in my journal, though, this was a completely unsatisfactory trade for me. And that's what most of my best winners are, is they're not shiny, they're not hard, quick, and rapid, just immediate spike like a SYTA, just slap you in the face within 2-3 minutes types of trades. Of course, I like those because I can be in and out and just, that's it for the day, I'm done. But these ones, I align myself with these full trend day type of plays, and we don't even have to talk about, we can just cut this part of the chart out where it has a little spike and does whatever. Forget about that. These types of charts that I align myself to of looking for the trend sentiment on the day is, you can pick the fine-tune aspect of this is, okay, now we can understand where did the tops actually get put in here. We're looking at 185, were there key reasons why it was specifically 185, blah, 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 blah. Going hard into technical analysis that way, the fine-tuning, fine-tooth comb aspects of picking apart the chart and trying to find the best entries and exits versus what I'm still trying to do with these ones is understanding where are the broad term places that I need to be. Where's the easiest way to make the money? What is the most easiest way to hold or to be in these types of trades that are going to continue to go your way, and all the factors as it continues to go that way continue to push that trade your way more and more in that sense. So any amount of I think I tend to swing towards these more because it's just easy to feel what I would feel as a long for how many times I've done that before, of trying to play these as a bag holder long, of speculative, it's up in pre, it's on news, it's time to go, it's a low floater, it's gonna go at some point, and just continuing to hold on as it's breaking to new low of day, continuing to just look weak, not a lot of volume coming in to support anything, and just like, okay, well, it's looking like a little bit of a base here. All right, we'll get a nice break to VWAP eventually here. I'm just continuing to hold on to that hope and linger until it just becomes an exhaustive desperation sell, and there's just nothing coming out of it. That's the way I want to be a part of on the other side of for whatever I was sparked by that emotion. Initially, I want to be on the side of the people who are selling that and just continuing to take the money from those type of people in desperation and just high pie in the sky hopes that are holding on to these types of things on these types of charts that way. So I am tired and just continuing to put words on that I really don't have to be there, but we're getting through it. Great little trade on that one, JZXN. Great little reminder of that chart on July 14th as well. Let's talk about ISIG. Wanted to be short this one for this little second day play off of the huge day it had yesterday. Again, this is just for fundamentals reminder for me. Sub-million floater. It's this American advertising, consumer packaged goods, blah, 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 whatever crap. News catalyst yesterday. So looking for a little second day kind of rest, little sell-off day to play today. and somehow didn't get filled through my paper trading account, of course. So I don't really validate or just put so much weight on not getting filled or what prices I do get filled at on the paper trading account that way too. So I was looking for this little VWAP rejection. Like had an order in around here as it was playing in this area, seeing it sell off and it immediately breaks down there. And I go back to my paper trading account and I just didn't get filled. And I'm going, okay, great, whatever. But anyway, after that, in the second, after this candle that continues to sell off more, I definitely would have been covering within these 1, 2, 3 minute candles here, following those hard 2 red candles to avoid for some reason, I just immediately thought of LGVN on the 24th of November. That was like this 3rd day play of LGVN where it went crazy parabolic and this continual multi-day move here of like 5th day of this run up. This was, after looking for that continuation of a red day where I was actually short and I traded very nicely for the same type of VWAP rejection play. And I was able to cover pretty much immediately, but that was really the only opportunity that I could have gotten to do that, and like pretty much nailed it perfectly, not on purpose at all that I wanted to, but all the opportunity that was there, that was what was offered, and then just crazily spiked against you just right after that into a halt with far more opportunity to the upside the rest of that day. So kind of protecting myself a little bit to that extent mentally on this type of trade today on ISIG, as I was still playing out as if I was in the trade. So definitely would have been covering. And it's not like a most awesome percentage move there, but decent little move there from this VWAP area, 11.75-ish, covering around 10.75, getting $1 a share that way. It has a little bit of a flirtation here, tries to halt and squirt crazy, but just unable to reach that $13 mark, which I alluded to Jack number 2 in the introduction as well. He was getting short this one from 15 yesterday and had some from 13 as well. I mentioned that because he mentioned that he had some shares to short or had another sell order in like a few cents away from where this top ticked. So he just missed out adding on that position, which ended up dumping continually nicely for the rest of the morning session there. Great learning lessons all around. ACET, also another chart I wanted to mention. Biotech, 12 million floater. Crazy day yesterday. Going to definitely look at this one for the day tomorrow. And I actually long some, kind of stupidly now in hindsight, just for how well it was holding here. Just grinded the whole day of, this is another educational moment. I've not seen this type of chart or this type of play before where on a second day play, if it's holding nicely, that it just spikes randomly in after hours or gaps higher the next day. But, who knows? It is kind of holding nicely. It had a nice little grind day today. Anything could happen crazily, whatever. So, rough little thesis, just very loose base. And of course, that's why it's paper. That's why it's just so small for that trade going into the close there. And it did kind of close pretty nastily. But I was looking for, in the morning session, looking for a red to green move, looking for any craziness. Not so much biased as a short for whatever reasons I can't tell you, but just, again, kind of that intuition, that gut feeling of, maybe I don't really want to be short. I think there could be more potential to the long, maybe a little bit biased from the pre-market session with Bowen. Maybe he mentioned something that way too that kind of caught me differently, or seeing this big volume spike out of nowhere that did intrigue me to pull this chart right up again, get the paper trading and active trader system ready and going if there was any volume continuation there, looking for a quick price move. It just didn't happen. So it was just kind of a little break-even trade that thought it was failing here after this second attempt. Dumping there. But it did end up going to the price that I potentially would have been selling into. It just happened a heck of a lot slower than I thought would have happened compared to how it was trading yesterday for those quick and rapid movements, of course, on bigger volume. But that was the way the cookie crumbled today on that one. And then ABUS, my last one I wanted to mention. Again, this is kind of more of a first green day-ish, bounce-ish type of attempt here for the big volume day it had on the 1st of December. A news catalyst today, they got COVID research licensing, whatever, bigger float, 93 million floater. And you can I wrote here is just the optimal short kind of would have been looking at technical levels on a more intraday perspective here. We've got a $4 whole dollar psychological level at this point that it did flirt with a little bit in these past days, where it opened yesterday, the previous trading day, and kind of was bottoming on last week Friday around there. But as you can see before, in the first 2 days of the spike of the move, it did also try the same thing of, okay, hey, we're developing ranges here. If we follow a little bit of ranges here, but just kind of continue to dunk and never really fully respect those, and pretended like it was respecting those. And especially on this opening day yesterday, or at the open yesterday, trying to trade a thesis off of that of any amount of bounce or first green day off of that move, just got immediately dunked on and broke through that pretty hard there at that point. So could have optimally, looking back in hindsight, been getting short at the rejection of the ability to maintain VWAP here for this initial pre-market spike. Of course, in hindsight, it's obvious that this was the high, and even the attempt to reclaim VWAP topped at this 4.2-ish area, which I never find as any coincidence whatsoever. I think it's funny how many times this happens again and again, that for whatever reason, this little point of demarcation, this failure to maintain VWAP as it continues to climb back under, we can get little fake outs time and time again, but that's just part of trading. It's never going to be perfect 100% of the time. But the main one here, for whatever reason, why it's sometimes, of how many times I've seen that we do get, it looks like it's just climbing back to VWAP, or it's going to be an attempt to climb higher, but that it returns to that significance in time in price. And then that just ends up being another high there. So another opportunity for somebody to get short into again, to sell off into that is a great another addition to the bank of trades and recognition of patterns that are happening, and not to get spooked out too quickly if it's returning to my same entry price around there to that late too. But for what I traded, of course, trading it through TradingView again, looking only in market hours really that I can push a button to actually be in a trade. We broke down a little bit out of the gate, reclaimed nicely, and I thought this was all we were going to get. I thought this move here to 405 was going to be it. I knew it wasn't going to be the most awesome. This was one of the lower percentage movers of the pre-market, but still up nicely to hit the scanners for the day. So I thought that was all the move we were going to get. We pulled back a little bit to $4 level, and it ends up holding and trying to attempt to reclaim the VWAP to 410-ish area. So my finger's still on the trigger with the thesis of, okay, I'm still looking for that VWAP rejection. Potentially would have been adding and would have not been adding. It's just so many gray lines with this paper trading, but I'm in the headspace of what I want to be with all of this, to say I'm understanding what's happening, and I'm still, if I wasn't even in a trade, if I didn't have a position on currently, I still would be looking for this sign, and perfectly we got it there, that big volume to slap that down, any attempt for it to go higher. It just didn't have any more breakdown or juice in it to kill it fully like the JZXN. So kind of around the same time of JZXN, just taking off shares, covering to take profits as they are there, not play with fire, not just stick around too long. Because at some points they can just get a little finicky, and we produce these little twin towers of volume candles here that push it closer to that VWAP mark, and I was not going to let it flirt around anymore with that $4 level. Even though I was a little bit padded by that from where my entry was and where I potentially would have been risking closer to this 410-ish area. But even with that too, just for what my position in on this one was, just, okay, I think it's getting swirly, volumes coming in, I will gladly get out of the way of it and let it do what it wants to do. But this is a great example again too, with the ABUS, with not even JZXN, but how many times have I done it before of just getting faked out as I'm short, mainly as I'm short of, they do these little perky moves and they go crazy, but the overall trend is there that it's death and it's going to die. And sure enough, half an hour later, it's still back at that price range that it was after this little, or before this little crazy volatility scare, spiky move, or covering effort that was there. Sure enough, that's just what happens. It's time and time again. And of course, that's famous last words. And the one time it doesn't happen, and I continue to bag hold and say, well, it's got to come down eventually, and it's ended up going 1,000 percentage points against me. Yeah, that's when it's not going to look so fun. But man, still the majority of the time that I feel I screw myself over a lot, and I continue to look at it through this type of lens for whatever reason, that I'm still in the time perspective of the 1 minute candle, not necessarily the entire day chart that I get into the trade with the thesis on. So I think it's a continual evaluation for me on that regard too, of I'm getting into these trades with a thesis of I'm playing the full morning session at least, death trend. I'm playing the drop off, the fade. That's the type of chart I'm trading. And I have to be able to continue to watch that level 2 time and sales, just keep every factor in line, but also understand, don't get tricked or fooled out by just the little minuscule obstacles that get in the way. That's what they're there to do, is to trip you up and get you caught up in the little tiny inconsistencies, which sometimes can lead into great exits and great understanding of what the chart could potentially actually do and get you out of the way of something crazy that could start. But yeah, mentioning of this is so many times they do just end up tripping you up more than what is actually there. So that light. So that is all the charts I wanted to mention on the day. ENSC I wanted to look at on the watch list for me as of right now, just as another, like I mentioned in the introduction, just kind of inspired again from the Jack number 2 style of trade, of pushing the envelope and exploring of what potential trades are there. What do I like to do as a trader for my personality? So trading this one short into the aftermarket overnight here. I did it paper-wise, of course. Obviously, huge first green day on this boy. Low-flow biotech. Just following along. I used to do this a lot more, track the data of a first green day overnight short, saving the day trade there, but obviously having to take on a few more borrow fees with that one. But certainly have to adjust the schedule if I'm going to do this more, to be in front of the screen without the opportunity to take stop losses on, take profit targets. There could put limit orders in, obviously, but yeah, it's just thesis on this one. We've been topping so many times. It's up 136%. It still could within the next 3-4 days have a very nice multi-day run up, but going into the open tomorrow, I just think the thesis is there too. We're already up 10% here. I got a nice 310 fill paper wise as it was climbing there. Kind of lucky, not very, was based on a little bit of level 2 and time and sales reading, but yeah, certainly not. I'm not a wizard by any means. Just got a little lucky with that 310 fill, but we're sitting pretty nicely as of right now. We'll see if we get. Obviously, I just want to put myself in the fire more, because how more squirrely can you get than going short in after hours for how crazy these things can move, especially on low flow biotechs that are up hundreds of percents. It's going to be fun, but I'm all here for it and excited to continue to expand my knowledge and put my hand on the stove and get that firsthand experience that I feel is necessary sometimes for me, especially in order to fully comprehend what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, and outlining the charts that way. So that is all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.